welcome to the Car Sim and Race Driver Show, presented by Hugh Hattrick. Here at Bathurst in the Forest, my very special guest, Basic Ollie, Rascal, Rabbit, Josh Martin. It's great to have you back on the show. Drive fast and try not to crash. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Car Sim and Race Driver Show. And we've finally got him. It is the man himself, the legend, that is Tidgney. Good evening, Tidgney.
Hello. The ultimate player.
I was just saying earlier on in the chat before we started officially that everyone has been wanting me to get you on the show. Whenever I get a comment on Discord or on one of our other shows that we've done, they said, when are you getting Tidgney on the show? And tonight I can happily say we've managed to catch you for a few minutes to get you to ask you all these questions and things like that. Now, I will put on my comments here so that I make sure I don't miss anything here. But yes, we've already got lots and lots of people. So welcome to all our viewers, and get your questions ready. Because we'll be asking Tidgney all sorts of things. Now you've got him where you want him. He's not racing, so he can answer your questions without fear of crashing. So we'll make sure that we'll test him to the limit here with what you can answer, I'm sure. But to take it from the start, now for some of your newer viewers and newer subscribers who maybe just have found out about you, how did you start gaming and getting into racing games?
So starting gaming, I used to, when I was about 6 or 7, used to complain I was bored all the time. I'd play with my toy cars and then say, "Oh, I'm bored." So eventually my mum and my nan, basically as a present, bought a PlayStation 1 and Gran Turismo. And then the TV I had, this is the funniest part of the story. The TV I had, it used to roll. So I'll always remember this. I was racing Grand Valley East. Can't remember what the car I was in, but I'd have to follow the picture up to the top of the TV and then look back down to then catch the bottom of it again. And that's how I learned Grand Valley East as I drove around. And then obviously from there, it's just grown. But I always used to do weird challenges as well. So Formula 1 96, or as it was called, just Formula 1 back then. Driving on the TV camera around Adelaide or doing the full distance Monaco race, because why not when you're 7 or 8 years old?
You must have been having dreams about that in your sleep. If you're doing Monaco, innit? Because like 81 laps or 79 laps of that racetrack, which is an incredible track. All the bumps, all the curves, all the kind of stuff you have to avoid, and seeing the tunnel and everything like that, which is amazing. So I suppose it just developed from there, and then you got PlayStation 2 and so on and so forth. Or how did you find your racing developed?
Well, the PlayStation 2 came out when I was still basically, how old was I? Maybe 10 or 11. I'm not sure when the PlayStation 2 came out. So I actually missed that generation. So I never played, I never owned Gran Turismo 3 and 4. I did play them because my uncle had the PlayStation. And I used to, so what would happen is I'd go to school, then go to my nan's house, play on it for 2 hours, and then go home. And then obviously I couldn't play it then until the next day and do the same thing over and over and over again. So I kept doing that. It's kind of funny, really, because when I was at high school, people used to say they could beat me, and I'd be like, well, I've already beaten that time. Oh, I've beaten that time as well. But I wouldn't brag too much about it. But I think it was well said in the grand scheme of it, or well thought, bearing in mind that I got to GT Academy. So that was kind of funny, really.
That's fantastic. So what do you think it was that, I mean, do you think you just had so much practice and you just liked it so much that you were able to compete with the top guys in GT sport at the time? Or, you know, what would you say is how did you develop your skill to do so well in GT sport?
Well, it's a bit weird. I'm naturally good at gaming in general. So before, say, GT Academy, I tried to become a professional in StarCraft 2. And I'd been good at any game, really. So, you know, even role-playing. So I played World of Warcraft, and I literally would always try and be the best on the damage meters or the healing meters. I'd always try and be the best. And then Warcraft 3, when I originally played, I'd always try and be the best there. And then StarCraft 2, the same. I'd always try and be the best. But you have to put in 10 hours a day for StarCraft 2. And I was at uni, and I could only do 4 hours a day-ish. But then GT Academy came along. And when the 2010 one, the Indianapolis one, happened, I sort of looked at it briefly and was like, I can compete here, but I didn't have the time at the time. So I was like, I won't try it now. And then 2011 came around. I was like, I can do this. I can do this. So I started going for it. And what I did is I sort of I planned my day, and I always plan my day in a way that's efficient. So I said I was going to do 4 hours a day, and because I was at uni, it's free basically in terms of I go to class and that's it. So it's an hour in the morning, an hour at lunch, an hour in the afternoon, and an hour in the evening. And I'd analyze my best lap from each session. I put them all into a spreadsheet and then work out what my best time could be, and then I'd keep pushing on like that.
That's fantastic. I mean, so it's very detailed. So you must have thought, I mean, at the time, obviously back in 2011, it was quite a different game then as well, when you think of all the graphics and skills, what it can do. So you had to do all your kind of own, in effect, engineering as well. You're kind of, as you say, to learn where you could go faster and things like that. And what do you think is, everyone wants to know, how do you do a quick lap time? What would you say are the skills you need to be able to do a fast lap? What's the things that are going to make people fast on that kind of game?
It's about identifying your weaknesses, I would say. Like, it's all very well and good, say, looking at a ghost or a rank 1 time and going, okay, they're doing all of this. But, and it's a comment I quite often see, they would say, how do you break so late? How do you do this? How do you do that? And while it might look easy, it's not necessarily that straightforward. So, while I might look at TRL Lightning's lap and I go, okay, I can see what he's doing there. And then might break at the same point, but he might just carry that little bit more speed. So then it's trying to identify those little weaknesses. And you've really, as you get closer and closer to the top times, you really have to understand and work out exactly where you're going wrong. Yeah. And then that's kind of a key thing to be able to do in order to get the fastest laps, because a lot of people will then look at it. So when I did GT Academy and I was doing the 4 hours a day, it's very easy for me to give up saying, oh, I can't do this. But I was really focused on each sector. Now, it was a custom track. I think it had 6 sectors. Don't quote me on that, but it had a lot of sectors. And I was always comparing against Tidgney because the guy's a legend. So literally every sector, I'd be like, okay, I did it this way this time. I did that way that time. That time's a little bit quicker, but was that just a lucky one or one-off? Or did I do that multiple times? And then it's like pinpointing very fine margins. And that's how you get like the ultimate lap. But that's why there's always a difference, and there's always been an argument in Gran Turismo, time trialists versus racers, and how some, like a racer can't be a fast time trialist, and a time trialist can't always be a good racer either. It's kind of weird.
Yeah, no, I mean that's immense detail for that kind of, to go into a game like that, and not just to try and do a very good time, but to all the work that goes in to get that good time. I suppose as you're saying that you knew that you could compete and potentially you could win it, or be right up there. So it must have been a massive motivation. At the time, were you thinking, if I won this, I could perhaps go on and get into real racing as well, or further your career? Was that one of the main goals?
Yeah. So one of the requirements for GT Academy is to have a driving license. So I had started driving lessons, and I failed my first test, weirdly, for something that I would still choose to do now. So it's a very bizarre fail. Even my instructor was like, yeah, I wouldn't have failed you for that, to be honest. So it was a bit annoying, really. So then when that GT Academy happened and I qualified for it, I had to pass my driving test in a weekend. If I didn't pass it, I couldn't go. So that was extra pressure on me, and I did pass it. But I was sort of, I'm naturally talented with driving in a weird way. I'm not necessarily the fastest driver out there, and I've always said this. There's always going to be a faster driver. I've always said my old teammate is insane at driving. He's much faster than me. But I was naturally talented at picking it up and just getting on with it quite quickly. So yeah, I don't know. I looked at that. I was like, yeah, okay. Let's have a look at racing. Let's see what I can do with racing. Now I look at racing, and I would do it as a hobby. I don't think I'd ever want to do it as a career, though. I just don't. Like looking at it from this perspective, after seeing some people progress through the racing, how lethal it can be in terms of GT Academy graduates and all that stuff. I'm kind of, as a hobby, as something that you can do for fun, or someone pays for you to race. Yeah, great. But I would never want to do it as a full career, I don't think.
I think it is. It's a real specialist thing, and I suppose it's people like David Perel who've been able to do both, isn't it? Or starting on in real racing and then coming into sim racing, and then kind of hosting that, and it's an interesting combination to be sure. But I think it's incredibly cutthroat, as you say, and you've got to have a good bit of money and all the kind of strategies that you need to make that all kind of work. That now, one of our first questions that I've got here is from Stephen Scott. It says, so Ted says he loves your attitude when you race. It seems like the more that goes wrong for you, the happier that you get. So his question is, have you ever had a rage? And if so, can you tell me what video it is? Because he wants to watch it.
So I have raged before. I've done it. I do rage. I'm only human at the end of the day. And if something irritates you so much, it will get to you. So I've always so I suppose I've ever raged at another driver, I suppose. And yes, and the first time that ever happened in GT Sport was with a Portuguese driver. And I've always stood by the 3-stripe rule when I race, which is, if you hit me off or you hit me and I go off, okay, it might be a mistake, If you then do it again, I'm like, you really got to learn here. And if you do it again, I'm like, well, okay, you can't do it 3 times. That's not really fair. I'm just going to push back here. So that Portuguese driver in particular, we were heading. So he'd already done it a couple of races already, and I had it in my head. I was like, he's going to absolutely just chuck it down the inside and not make the corner. Suzuka on the chicane. Guess what? He did that. He hit me off, and I was like, oh, no, you're not having that, mate. So I came back on track. I legged it after him. A lap or 2 laps later, I caught up to him at the first turn. So I basically broke for the first turn, released the brakes a little bit to a point where I could pit maneuver him, hit his right rear quarter, and he fired off into the barrier. I ended up finishing 5th in that race, amazingly, after being punted off. So I was fairly happy. But that was a bit of a rage. And one thing I try not to do is hide away from that, because the reason why I show my content isn't necessarily just say, oh, yeah, look at this amazing driving all the time, or whatever it might be. But like realistic reactions. And I always say this with live streams as well. Never take what I say to heart in a live stream in a race situation. So I know some people might disagree with my opinion. Oh, I've gone for this move. I've gone for that move. Or I don't have to overtake. That was a big drama. But that's my opinion at the time and what was happening at the time in the race. Afterwards, we can look at it and say, yeah, I was right. Yeah, I was wrong, or whatever it might be. But I don't rage often. And it's like the other day when I was streaming yesterday, the car seemed to have a bit different grip, and I went to the back of the grid basically. But I just go, it's a game. Can't change it now. I'll just carry on with the race. I'll try and learn something and move on with it.
Yeah. Well, I think that's the thing that when you're in a live stream and you're racing away, obviously your emotions as well are going to be strained a bit. And if it all happens at once, you're more likely to get upset. But no, it's great that you're able to keep calm and as you say, don't take things to heart when it's a live stream. It's probably not meant in that way, and people can take it out of context or things like that. But now we have a question. Actually, someone has made a comment. Inky1877. It says, "How do you only have 180 subs?" Obviously, for my channel. Well, that's a big question. We're growing the channel, so if you haven't already subbed, it was the first time that you've seen the channel here. It'd be fantastic for you to hit that like button
down there somewhere. Right?
Somewhere down there. That would be absolutely brilliant. I really appreciate it. And we've got the stars of the sim racing field here, and we've got a big back catalogue. In fact, we've actually got a podcast of Tidgney that we did about a year and a half ago. And I remember because when we set it up, it came on the TV on my monitor here, and it was showing a picture of your pedals. Because I know that your camera was working for your face, so we couldn't see you, but we can see your pedals. But in the end, it went out as a podcast rather than a video. But it's on the channel there in the back catalogue. So it's fantastic having these superstars of sim racing here on the show for you to ask questions. So make sure everyone in the chat, don't be lurkers. Write down your questions, and we'll get Tidgney to answer them for you. Now we've got one here from Andrew Marr. And it says here, if you were driving as an amateur, what kind of series in real racing would you like to do?
So I have actually already looked at it. So after GT Academy 2013, which is when I got to boot camp, I was like, okay, I need to carry on this. So I had a friend who I met in Gran Turismo, actually. And he was doing MG Trophy, which is, at the time, it had 4 classes inside it. Basically, MGZRs, different specs.
Oh, yeah.
Basically, it went from 190, I think it was 190 brake horsepower, all the way down to the bog standard car, but roll cage and all that good stuff. So I was like, oh, I could get into this. Now, I think it was Class B I was looking at. Basically, it's the most popular class because it's sort of like touring car-esque. It was good racing, but it still costs a lot of money at the end of the day. I think it was £6,000 to £8,000 a season, I want to say. Obviously, not including the car. So it's a lot. And then I heard what some people were doing. So obviously, they've got weight limits and power limits and stuff. So what some of the people who were pouring money into these cars were doing was stripping them to the very bare bones and then adding the weight where it was best to have weight rather than what the car would, where you would strip it down to the weight. They stripped it below the weight and added the weight back on. So I was like, oh, that's, it's sort of, you're sort of cheating the system essentially. So that was a bit frustrating, but I would love to do something like that, to be honest, as a hobby. Even if I got to race once a year, I'd be fine with that, to be honest.
No, I remember speaking to a chap who used to do the touring cars, and he said at the time you could race for the MG team. This was a good few years ago, and it would cost you about £6,000. But if you could raise that kind of money, you got to drive in one of the touring car races, or for one of the days, you get the 3 races. And I thought, that's not bad, actually, because at the time the MG was actually quite good. I think it was for the official team. They were looking for people to do it at the time. So no, that's the thing. But I know that those kind of races do sound fantastic. And are you a bit of a fan of the touring cars in general as well? Is it? Do you sometimes watch it? Is it something that you like?
I do like touring cars. The problem is I don't know what the word is, but basically I haven't watched it in the last couple of years. I don't know what it is, but I've sort of lost touch with it a little bit, and I don't know why personally. I suppose one is that the program is the entire day, and it's sort of like I don't really want to watch motorsport from 10 a.m. till 6 p.m. and waste my entire day just watching it. So then I occasionally miss the start of the race, and I'm like, oh, I don't want to miss the start of the race because I don't want to watch the rest of the race. So I do like watching it. Like I've been to live events all the time. I go to Alton Park quite a lot to watch them. But yeah, I do like it, but I've not really followed it in the last couple of years. I need to get back into it, to be honest. I really do.
Yeah. Now we've got another question. I've got a couple here for you, but first of all, I'm going to do it from Moore1152. He says, you make things look so easy even during streaming. Do you not find streaming to be a distraction, especially in big races during official seasons?
Not really. I mean, so how to explain this? So back when I played StarCraft 2, this is going to sound really weird. Okay, so bear with me with the explanation, and then you'll sort of see the outcome from this. So StarCraft 2 is a real-time strategy game, and the best players in the world will do 300 to 400 actions per minute on the keyboard and mouse. Now, imagine that on a per second basis. It's crazy. Now, my actions per minute peaked between 200 and 300 potentially, but you've always got to be thinking at the same time as also doing all this stuff on the keyboard and mouse. So what actually happened during that StarCraft season was also the X2010 Vettel Challenge in GT5. And in that, you also had to think very quickly. And for some reason, playing these very, 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 very fast paced games allow you to then be able to think while also race, because racing actually is kind of slow. Like compared to a lot of games, it's slow, and you've got time to think and chat and do things, which is probably why I might make it seem easy, I suppose. I'm not too sure, to be honest, because I actively know what I'm doing, and I can also focus on chat and have a bit of a conversation at the same time. And it's purely from my real-time strategy gaming, if I'm honest, because I'm having to think on the fly. And World of Warcraft as well, weirdly, like all my old school games. So in that, I was raid leading as well as playing my own character, trying to beat everybody. So at that point, I'm trying to control 24 other players in, trying to defeat a boss, whatever it might be, while also trying to play my own character, and then making sure they're not doing mistakes, calling out what the boss is going to do, and then also still focusing on my own character and, doing that stuff. So the training to think very quickly, very fast, I think has helped me with the racing and streaming at the same time.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like you've got a great kind of mental capacity to be able to take all that on and still be able to think as well as race, because that's what they always used to say about Schumacher, wasn't it? He was so fit, and he could race so well that it was so natural that he could think ahead and have the strategy always sorted out. And it gave him that edge when he was racing for so many years. So yeah, no, it's fantastic. Now, we've got a question from Bracing One. It says, how do you come up with those awesome community championships?
Well, I don't know really. The Mini Madness. I can't remember how Mini Madness came about actually. That's a good question. I wanted to do something different. Like, see, the problem I find is that, I mean, I'm not allowed to reveal some stuff from what Gran Turismo said. So basically, Gran Turismo said they were going to do stuff for the community, and then they never did. So I was like, why don't I do stuff for the community? So that's why I wanted to do a community championship, because yes, okay, you have the world finals and world tours, but it's sort of like, okay, that celebrates 20 people, 30 people. There's thousands of people that do the FIA here. So I was sort of like, okay, let's go to a community championship. And then at the end of it, I was like, why don't we just get trophies? I mean, there should be trophies for this. It's a good bit of fun. People have put so much effort into it. So then we did Mini Madness, and then we went on to, well, the Fugu Frenzy. That was a lot harder to pick the car. I went through every single manufacturer and every single car, and I listed the ones that sounded suitable, looked suitable, potentially were suitable. Then we got it down to 5 or 6 cars, and it was like, okay, we tried them on stream, different cars. We got a good feeling for the final few, and then it was like, okay, yeah, we know what we're going to pick here. And then we went with the Fugu. But again, it's because I didn't want just the top aliens to win. So in the first season, the best players won that. Or it appeared to me that the best players won that. But I wanted to give more awards out for different things. So, you might not necessarily be an alien, but you may come out with the best overtake of the season. Like Maizen 22 in round 5 did the Moses maneuver on the corner. Now that to me is one of the best moves I've seen in a long, long while. And Maizen's not peak level, but that's an overtake that can potentially get a prize there. And that's why I do the community championship. And that's why I sort of want to come up with different ideas as well. Because Gran Turismo sort of do their own thing, but I want to do my own thing with different things and create funky championships in that, just give us a bit of fun and interest.
Yeah, and it gives a real kind of lively community as well to the game, which is fantastic.
Yeah, exactly.
Where you've seen the growth and how it's all come about, which is brilliant. Now, we've got Keirith Cart in the chat as well. And he has asked a question about your driving test. And he said, come on, Tidgney, what was the incident in your first driving test? What went wrong? Okay,
so basically, I was coming up to a junction, and a car was parked on the junction on the left-hand side. So, and I could see nobody was in the car. So in my mind, I was like, well, okay, I don't want to block the entire junction, road junction. I'm turning left. So, if anyone comes around the corner, they can still get round. So I drove close to the car, I could see nobody was in it, drove left, indicated, carried on as normal. He said that was a fail because I didn't know whether someone was in the car, but I was like, in my head, I was like, I can see, but apparently that doesn't matter. So yeah, that was the reason I failed, because I drove too close to the car, and that's literally it.
Yeah, that's unfortunate, isn't it? Obviously, allow for a meter's distance or something, isn't there? Some
yeah. And I'd say I would actively still do that same decision right now.
I know, that's the thing, isn't it? That now we've got another question about your favorite class of cars in Gran Turismo Sport. Do you have a favorite car, or do you check for the top 10 fastest lap times like the rest of us do?
Okay, so in terms of favorite class, it's Group 3, GT3 every single time. I love that. I'm a big fan of the Blancpain Endurance Series in real life. So I always go to Group 3. If there's ever a Group 3 race on, I'm there. I'm there. It's probably why I like ACC quite a lot as well. But in terms of car, I like the Audi R8, I'll be honest. I want to own one eventually. So, if I can, if the Audi R8 is available, I will pick it and I will go for it. But I have a soft spot for the Peugeot RCZ Group 3 car as well. I really, really do like that car as well.
Yeah. I remember it at the Blancpain race last year. The Audi R8s, they sounded really good. Very, very distinct. A bit like the Lamborghinis as well.
V10s forever.
But no, and they were loud. I remember saying that to David Perel. I was surprised at how loud they were, which was great. So you really got the feel and the emotion as the cars went round the corners and into the complexes. It was great fun to watch them. But I'm sure you'll be well on your way to getting yourself an R8 or they're some machine. But I think they're still around, isn't it? I think they're still producing the R8 now, so you never know.
They are, but I don't want a new one. I only like the Gen 1 R8, so I want the old one.
Yeah, no, they are. I mean, they're very distinct, and that noise and the look and the whole design, it's a lovely design. I think that will definitely be a classic, I'm sure.
Yeah, 100%.
So now that PS5 has been launched, and GT7 is on its way, what do you think GT7 will have that we don't have at the moment?
I've got to be careful with this one. I know some stuff I'm not allowed to say. Okay, so obviously the offline stuff, it'll have a lot more. It'll be GT old school-esque, should I say. So there's going to be, I assume there's going to be licenses anyway. I don't know for certain with that, but I'm assuming there's going to be licenses. And all the old school stuff that we've experienced from previous games, for sure. One thing I am interested in, and one thing I don't know the answer to, is that whether they're going to continue with the whole FIA championship sort of thing. Like, how can you define it as a success? Is it a success? Like in the grand scheme of it, you look at Gran Turismo, it's got 7 million player base or whatever it might be, and only less than 100,000 are competing in it. Is that a success? I don't know. I don't know how they would deem it a success or not. So I don't know whether that would continue. I would really, really, really love to see them separate FF cars from Group 4. They just don't belong there. It drives me nuts. They've got this big opportunity to make a touring car class, Group T, Group F, whatever you want to call it. It's there. It's available. Just put them in there. They already know that from the daily races, so I'm hoping that happens. And the big thing I want more than anything is big car grids. I mean, if we can have 30, 40 car grids, I'd be over the moon with that. Like, that's my perfect game then summed up. I wouldn't need to play any other game. And 30, 40 car grid, because then you can have a proper multi-class race. And I know, there's something I suppose I can say, because this, I don't know if it's in GT7 or not, but one thing that we've asked quite a lot at the World Tour events is for driver change. So a lot of the games have driver change. And last time we spoke about it at a World Tour event, they were investigating that. So whether that ends up in the game or not, I don't know, but I know they are investigating that. And they do play, by the way, I don't know if everyone knows this, they play every other racing game out there. They do try them. They don't just play Gran Turismo. They have accounts for them all. They play them all. They see the best bits of everything. And, so what we end up with Gran Turismo is obviously going to be the best for that console, which is why GT Sport hit its limits and they had to downgrade the amount of players that could play online and all that stuff.
All right. Yeah. And the big question as well is what do you think of the current penalty system? Do you think it kind of works well? I've had quite a mixture of responses from different drivers. What's your take on the current penalty system?
I don't think it works well, if I'm honest. So I actually did a video on this, and basically I don't understand why it's designing a penalty system which is 100% foolproof and works every time. Impossible. Like, I understand that completely, but it just feels like it's very hit and miss. And in my opinion, there's quite a few things they could do. Very easy things, I would say as well, but I don't know how the game's designed, that could really, really improve the penalty system quite a lot. So to give you an example, obviously, bumper drafting sometimes will give you a penalty because it sees it as a brake check. But there's no reason for it to see it as a brake check if both drivers have 100% throttle input. It's definitely not a brake check. So I don't understand why they can't, when there's a point of contact, log both the inputs of both drivers, quickly calculate that they were both 100% at the point of impact. Therefore, it's not a brake check, continue racing. But then when we get to a corner, for example, so I sort of said this in the video, there should be a straight penalty system and then a corner penalty system. So if you hit someone from behind in a corner, the driver behind more than likely is probably at fault. So then doing something involving that as well.
Yeah, no, because it's so annoying if somebody hits you and then you go off the track and then you don't get anything. And then that's it. And then they ruin your race and you're going to start from the back. or those kind of things, or they know when to touch you every time they're hitting you from the behind, and then you're getting an SR down as well. And
Exactly.
You're like, well, you know, I'm just trying to either defend my position or just minding my own business, and they're just kind of clattering into you. No, it's quite a thing. Now, Adventure Racing has said the penalty algorithm is so confusing; it's never consistent. I wish they just told us what you actually got a penalty for, and that would probably help. To be fair.
I suppose the funny thing is they did add the reason for it now in that penalty system, you know, where it says ignoring track limits and collision with another car. But the problem is sometimes you get a penalty and it doesn't say anything, and it's sort of like, well, hang on, you've added the reasons, but this penalty is said nothing. So you've just given me a penalty, but absolutely not. It's like, what are you doing? Just tell me the reason. Like for real, the reason sometimes is wrong, and it's sort of like, well, yeah, I didn't collide with a car; they collided with me. But again, that's why I think that if they just, it's weird because I'm a very logical person. So and when I program at work or design something, I'm very step by step by step. What's the logic behind this, and this, and this, and what happens in the real world? And I think sometimes a developer or a programmer can get stuck with just the theory behind it and not the actual reality. Especially, you know, in Asia, they're very trusting people. Like when I went to Japan, it was amazing. They're so trusting of everything. Whereas in Europe, I would argue we're very not trustworthy in the grand scheme of it compared to the Japanese. So they may design a penalty system based on trust, but that isn't going to work very well in Europe. So I do think there's a bit of an issue there in that sense as well.
Well, it's just like that whole queuing system, isn't it? You go to Spain, and as Brits, we kind of wait in a queue, and then we find everybody else just piles on in front, and that's it. And you're left looking to think, well, hang on a minute, you know, that's the way it all works. But no, as you say, yeah, it's different kind of character traits for different countries and cultures.
Yeah,
that's probably maybe I hadn't thought about that. Of course, the Japanese culture being very kind of calm and reassuring, isn't it? So that's the kind of thing. And how do you think, in terms of the new game, that they can improve the driver experience? Because I've noticed that most sim races that I watch, they don't really have an interior cockpit view. They tend to always either be on the front bonnet, or maybe it's the one with the with the dials and speedo and things on the front. Yeah. Why do you think that is, that we don't tend to play with an interior view on things like Gran Turismo Sport?
Well, in reality, or I suppose in reality and my opinion, racing in cockpit view in real life is a weakness. It's the same as dirty air is a weakness in real life. So if you can get rid of a weakness and give yourself more oversight on a track, give you more visibility, then why not take it? And that is literally it. So drivers would go towards the strongest camera, basically whatever gives you the best opportunity to go the quickest, you pick that view. Lewis Hamilton said himself he uses chase cam because he sees the car, he knows exactly the width of the car to go around corners. It's that same principle. He sees that as the biggest strength, so he goes for that camera.
Aye, I know that's it. Yeah, it's it. I suppose that's it. You're taking away a weakness. I mean, I suppose you've got the diehards to think, right, I want to have it on a in-car view as if to make it as real as possible. But they are putting themselves out in terms of being competitive. That well, I have to say, for everyone who's watching tonight, you're getting the absolute keys of how to drive faster and faster, because that's not something that maybe everyone would think about and how they approach a race. Now we've got another quick question from Andrew Mars. Says, have you ever got a penalty for being ahead on the racing line at the 130R at Suzuka?
I have had some strange penalties before now. I'm not sure I've had one there, but I got I had a cracker the other week in a weekly race guide. I apparently ran a car off, but the only car that went off was my car. I'm still confused by that to this day. I even rewound the replay and was like, "Where's the car? Forcing another car off track? Where? What? I can't see anybody."
It's kind of crazy. And on that kind of note, do you think that, I mean, the damage on GT Sport has never been more than a kind of thump and a bang, and that's about it? Do you think that's a good idea and it should be maintained? Or do you think it should go more down the kind of ACC line and maybe start having damage on it and, potentially critical damage that could throw you out of a race if need be?
Well, I suppose the big thing to me is that Gran Turismo is very much, and they say this in their advertising as well, it's for everyone. So while we may want damage and the theory behind damage is very good, little Jimmy, who's 9 years old, he just
Yeah.
wants to race and go out and have fun. So if you crash his car on the first lap, you're going to just ruin his fun instantly. So I see Gran Turismo being in the right sort of area, especially when you also consider the size of the population. As I said earlier, I think it was 7 million, that the last number I heard. And if you've got 7 million drivers, you've got 7 million internet connections.
Yeah.
And they're not all going to be very good. Now, Gran Turismo can do anything they want in terms of netcode, but if you just get hit off because somebody's lagged and you have terminal damage on lap 1, race 1, or whatever it might be, you're not going to be very happy. So they did try damage on, and every race I did with damage on in that FIA season, not one incident was my fault, and it was all race ending every single time, and it's not fun in the slightest. So while the theory is good, in reality, it doesn't work. It really doesn't work in a game like Gran Turismo. iRacing and stuff like that, dedicated sims, people are going very hardcore. Yes, it works. In Gran Turismo, it definitely doesn't work.
Yeah. No, that's the thing. I mean, it's the kind of explosion of sim racing with, more and more people buying, with sim racing gear, with, steering wheel pedals and a seat. It's kind of think, where will it go next? Because some people, one of the things that hasn't done so well is like the motion simulators. They haven't really taken off as I think maybe people thought they might. Maybe some of them have come down in cost and different things, but it's not. You don't really see many sim racers, or certainly on YouTube, that have big motion sims. It all tends to be the best stuff that's available out there on the normal kind of standard market. Do you think there's maybe a reason why motion simulators haven't really done well for racing games?
I think the problem is racing games are by nature competitive, and a motion rig reduces your competitiveness because literally you're forcing movement in the body. And again, it's one of these real life weaknesses, essentially, in the fact that you have to build strength, you have to build fitness. It's another added complication to the racing. So if you can just sit still and just drive, then your consistency will improve because you're forever in the same position. And rather than your body doing this or doing that, it's only your foot doing that. And that is more consistent, therefore you will go faster. And that, I suppose that's the big difference between motion sims and standard sims. I do expect VR to pick up in the next few years, if I'm honest. VR is very good for racing. You won't see streamers probably use it, but you will see a lot more people pick up VR, I suspect.
Yeah, it's funny how it hasn't taken off so far as much as, again, it's what people thought, because when it came out with the PS4, this was the big thing, wasn't it? But it was making people a wee bit kind of queasy in some places. I think this weren't used to it with that kind of setup. But yeah, that'd be good to see that getting better. I've played it once on an old classic simulator. It was in a proper cockpit of a Lotus 63, and then they put the VR goggles on. And actually, I thought it was amazing because you just see everything. You see everything around you.
I've done it as well. I was in a competition where I had to use VR, and it's so Snetterton has got the fast right and then into the hairpin, and I just found it amazing, basically, because normally in a hairpin in a game you're waiting to see the exit, whereas I could just go, oh nice, I know where the exit is, and I went faster in VR because I could see the exit and I knew I wasn't. So I've mentioned this with Suzuka a little bit when doing fast time trials. At the hairpin at Suzuka, you're always waiting for the exit, but if I can just look left and know that I can see the exit, you can judge it better and you can go a little bit quicker. And in racing, you should always look into the apex, so it will make people faster. That's why I expect VR, when the technology gets there, I mean, it's building up quite nicely now. I'm pretty sure VR will take off.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. Now we've got a question from Loopy Racing. It is, what is the most amount of clean races in a row you've seen or heard about, or even perhaps what have you achieved in your own career on GT Sport?
I actually don't know the answer to that question, if I'm honest, because I know how funky Gran Turismo can be, so I sort of just race, and then if I get a clean win, happy days. If because sometimes leaving a little nudge and it'll discount it. So I've never really paid attention to it, to be honest with you. So and I've not heard about anybody actively going for like 1,000 clean races. I mean, that would be quite mind-boggling, to be honest.
I know Libby said he'd done 39. He managed to do 39 clean races in a week. Which
that is pretty good going.
Miraculous. I think I've had 4 in my career of doing it. And it was always one that you think, oh, I want a great run, and then something happens, and then that's the end of it. But now we've got a great question from Jan Hendrik Jun. What is your favorite game that you've ever played of all the games you have ever played?
Oh, that's a tough one. Oh, no. It depends. Okay, so the game I've played for the longest amount of time, let me just say this one, is obviously going to be, or more than likely will be, World of Warcraft. I played that for a very long time and put in a lot of hours. So that is going to be well up there. That's into the years of played time. You know, if I did you could do /played and it would tell you how long you've been online on that character. That was in the years. But the best game, that'd be tough. That'd be so tough. I mean, I wouldn't even say it's a racing game, if I'm honest. So I'm probably disappointing most people. Like I do like I'll say World of Warcraft, Warcraft 3, that sort of thing is going to be up there, to be honest. I really do love those. And any theme park building games. Oh, I love them. I love building games. I don't know why. It's just, yeah.
I've played a theme park building game, I have to admit. But I know it sounds like you can make some fairly lethal roller coasters and a few other bits and pieces if anyone survives them. And that sounds like a good laugh. But now we've got a question from Fat Furby. It says, would you like to see another GT Academy happen?
Ooh, interesting. I think one, yes. I would say yes, but I would like to see it in a different format. As in how the driver goes about getting into racing, because I feel like, so it started off as a driver, you know, looking for the talent, and it ended up in becoming just a marketing competition very quickly. So I wouldn't like to see it do what GT Academy did, where they were having 5 or 6 competitions a year for different regions. For, you know, so basically each Nissan company or group would put in money, basically, and that, you know, when Germany had their own, Nissan Germany put in €1 million. Nissan US put in over $1 million, and like that, for example. I wouldn't want to see it go down that sort of route. Picking one a year, one every other year, yes, let them do that. You know, give them a year, first year, find the driver, give them a year to really develop the driver, you know, get them racing, and then potentially look for another driver and do it on a, you know,
scale of it.
Yeah. 1 year on, 1 year off sort of thing. I think that would be good. I think that'd be really good, and there'd be a take up for that. But other than that, I wouldn't. The problem is it becomes marketing very quickly, and you know, the drivers lose out. So if people didn't know, Nissan in the contract, and one of the winners actually declined signing the contract, which is why you never heard of him again. It's one of the German winners. They, in their contract, I believe it says they'll take something like 10 or 20% of your salary for a given amount of time, plus any winnings you had to give something up, and then you got a certain salary anyway from Nissan. But one of the winners was going to be earning like half their wage and then giving even more up to Nissan for the remainder of the years, even though they weren't racing for them potentially in years to come. So there was a lot of sneaky clauses in there you had to be very careful of.
No, that doesn't sound so good. I mean, I always thought if they did a competition, I would love to see something like Formula Ford on Gran Turismo, because I think that would be a great fun kind of championship, and you could do it at places like Brands Hatch, all the famous runs, and I think that would get a big following as well. And
that has sort of done.
Sorry?
So that has been done, sort of. So in Project, so there was a team that did this, because I tried for it, and one of my teammates won it. Actually, I'm not sure what happened with it, actually. And Seb Job, he won it as well. He won the first time, but they were doing Formula Ford round. When I did it, Brands Hatch Indy, I think it was, on an old Project Cars version.
Project Cars,
yeah, and they just basically did that. They did you paid to enter, which is kind of a good way to fund it, for it to get funded and do it that way. And then the winner got a season in Formula Ford, basically.
That would be amazing. But something like that would be, I think that would be a fantastic way for Gran Turismo to do it, or more, either a single seater or a particular model of car or type of car. Because that's the kind of thing they could even do, a kind of budget race, you know, so that then they could put them into a budget championship, like what we were talking about before.
Exactly. That's what I'd like to see. I think that's much better.
I think that would be. Imagine if you had, 15 GT Sport champions or kind of winners in a touring car race, like that, because that would be, it's kind of more affordable and a bit more. And then
Exactly.
you see the skills coming out of how these guys adjust from sim racing to real racing. I think it'd be great to watch as well, and I think it would be.
Exactly. I think the critical thing from that as well is that it's affordable for the manufacturer or whoever runs it. It's still racing, which a lot of the competitors want to do anyway. So
Yeah.
it's a win-win basis for not a lot of money and quite a lot of marketing and publicity. So it actually makes more sense to do it that way rather than chucking him into a full season of GT3 while also doing this and doing that, and it's costing millions upon millions or whatever it
Yeah.
might be. Because that's not sustainable for any company. It really isn't.
Yeah. But I think it would do a lot more for grassroots motorsport as well.
Yeah.
It's the kind of thing that's easily duplicatable across Europe and across America, across Asia. It's the kind of thing that could quite easily replicate. And I think it just gets more people involved. So that's the game they all want to play, because it's got these potential for real kind of racing results and things like that, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly that.
Now we've got a question from Blake Zakavi, I think, if I pronounced that right. I hope I have. Is there anything in your racing or sim racing career that you would like to go back and change or do differently?
Now, I would like to go back and change my GT Academy 2013 boot camp running a telemetry test. That is one thing I would like to change. But would I do anything differently in any races? The only thing I can think of recently, I suppose, is this year, last year. No, it was this year. I'm getting confused with the years now. When I was so I started tryharding for like 3 or 4 rounds for Audi, and yeah, maybe I could have done some things better there, to be honest with you. Or the Monaco event, actually, that's just come to mind as well. Going for the move with 3 wide on that hairpin. If I could somehow change that. Because what happened, I don't know if it was caught on camera enough, but before the long straight, before the hairpin, I clipped the barrier. If I could just change that and go 1 mile an hour slower, I wouldn't have even been overtaken, and the whole event, we could have got third and got the trophy and done a shoey and gone absolutely balmy. But yeah, unfortunately, it didn't happen.
So what's been some of your, like your biggest events that you've done? Obviously, you've done a lot of the Gran Turismo finals and things. What's the one that kind of stands out most in your career of racing for Gran Turismo Sport?
That's a good question. So I've got to say Australia does stand out a lot. That was a really good event. One event that people don't talk about often, actually, is Salzburg 2018. That was one of the best events they ever did, because it was actually the fairest event they've ever done. It sounds weird, but if you ask a lot of the competitors that went to the Salzburg 2018 event and then did other events as well, they will say that was the best event. And even then, there was some unfairness in there with practicing and stuff, and they learned from that. Actually, the following year we went to Salzburg. But yeah, in terms of best events, Salzburg 2018. In terms of overall best events, in terms of just everything, it'll be between Sydney and Madrid, because Madrid's atmosphere in the stadium was mad. Like, man, yeah, that was mental. And there's that much of a crowd there. It's crazy.
Oh, that's the thing. It's so amazing. I mean, I've watched obviously the Monaco one, because Super GT, I remember went into that and did a video on that. That looked incredible, because I've been to Monaco the year before, just for a wee kind of day trip. I was staying in the south of France for a holiday for a wee while, and it was incredible. Even it was after the Grand Prix, they were taking down all the scaffolding and things, but it still had an incredible atmosphere. And I dragged my whole family at the time, a 5-year-old and a 7-year-old, all the way around the track through the tunnel.
I did that
all the way. You kind of have to, if you're there, isn't it? You have to see the whole thing, and you bore your kind of partner silly with telling them about, this is how fast I go through here, and all, and all the rest of it. But no, it's an amazing place, and to go all the way to Australia, I mean, that was a fantastic event. Where do you see it going in that way? Do you think once COVID eases, they'll be back to more incredible events around the world?
I don't know, they lose money at every event at the moment, as far as I'm aware, because it's such a big production. Now, it is a brilliant production. There's still improvements that could be made, and again, it's very much a marketing exercise more than for the drivers. They do try and help the drivers a little bit, but I mean, I don't know the drivers have shown from this year's regional finals, world final event. I think it might just be the world final drivers, but a lot of them have been getting big parcels and they have to set everything up themselves. It's kind of mad, but I don't see it being as big. I'll be honest. As I said before, there's 7 million people who have played Gran Turismo. That was the last number I saw. And if only 100,000, under 100,000 are competing in FIA,
yeah.
I mean, personally, I would call that a failure. But I know it's been a good championship, but I don't see it being. That's not a success to me. The whole point is that more and more people should have competed. But obviously, that's not happening. That's not the case. So I don't. They have to change something in order for it to improve. Otherwise, it is just going to fail, like completely. So yeah, it's a hard one to me. I don't see it staying the same. That's for sure.
Do you think? I mean, in the old GT Sport games, you used to get a rallying challenge, and so you'd have to do it like a group rally car and do a snow stage or a dirt rally stage kind of thing. Do you think that would be quite good as a different type of championship for people to do, perhaps on GT Sport, or do you think maybe there's not enough kind of maybe followers for that kind of thing?
I don't think the game's suited for that, if I'm honest. Like at the end of the day, there are rally games for rallying, and I think if you wanted to do a rally competition, go to a rally game. If you want to do circuit racing, go to a circuit racing game. So Gran Turismo there is kind of good, but I don't see it working out. I mean, we've done a rally event at a World Tour in Paris in 2019, and we're meant to be the best of the best when we're at these events, and it was horrendous driving. It was rubbish. I mean, some of the driving was good, but there was so much contact and everything. It's not going to be good in a competition.
Yeah. And do you ever see yourself doing more championships in Assetto Corsa competition and things like that? Would you like to do a lot more of that? And things like the Sim Grid with David Perel? Would you like to maybe compete in some of the races that he does?
Oh yeah. I've already said to Dave that I will do it. I tried to sign up for a daily race the other day actually, but I couldn't get signed in for some reason. So I was going to look at it afterwards. It was really right before the stream, so I was like, oh yeah, I can't do that then. But yeah, no, 100%. I want to either do a couple of leagues for ACC or something like that, or at least I want to race every week in ACC. That is no question. I do enjoy that game. I mean, I think I mentioned this earlier. It's very similar to Gran Turismo. It's just a little bit more serious. But at the moment, ACC is giving me this magic that GT gave me in 2018. GT's, in my opinion, in the FIA especially, and I think this is why maybe they're losing people. I don't know. It's lost the magic with the current way it's working. And ACC in the races, even on the competition server races, it gives me this little magic, this little buzz. Oh, nice. Okay, I've got a race. It's my one chance. I've got to, make sure I don't crash, although I keep bottling it apparently. And then, I've got to really think about the race. And that is what is missing, I think, in GT at the moment.
Mm-hmm. And now we've got a question from Bracing. It says, beside your driving school, will you want to do personal coaching? Like, for example, coach other sim drivers?
Yeah, that's always been on the cards, to be honest, because I get asked it a lot. Can you teach me, etc. And stuff like this. So it will happen. I've always said it'll happen after the driving school finishes. Now, the driving school is going to finish before the end of the year. And then I just need to... so one thing I don't want to do is suddenly go into this coaching exercise and then the community as a whole feel neglected. I don't know how to word this properly, but basically I don't want the YouTube content to suffer if I then go and do this. So I just need to make sure that, if I do one-to-one tuition, it's there and available. Now, obviously that wouldn't be for free just because that's time then that would go into the YouTube content. So I've got to be careful of that at the end of the day. But it's stuff that would then be invested into the YouTube channel. So it's kind of like it works alongside each other, if that makes sense. But as I say, I've got all that to work out. So there's a lot to work out, but it will be happening. I can say that for sure. That will be happening.
And do you think eventually, is it your goal to become full-time kind of YouTuber, kind of sim racer? Or do you think you always kind of want to have something else there as well?
Unless my mortgage is paid off, I would never do YouTube full-time. Or unless I was suddenly earning some random amount of money, like I won the lottery or something. But I don't see YouTube as a full-time career unless you're very, very safe financially, I suppose is the best way I can word it. Like, so I've had a bad experience with YouTube recently with ad revenue just being taken away for no reason whatsoever, for example. So it's that sort of thing and that sort of risk. I've always said to people that I wouldn't want to go to bed at night knowing that the income could just disappear totally if I was a full-time YouTuber, because that would just stress you out entirely. So, having my full-time job is fine. Doing the YouTube stuff is fine as well. If there's ever a cross and a clash and then suddenly stuff happens, it happens. I'll have to deal with that at the time. But I don't see myself being a full-time YouTuber personally.
Mm-hmm. Oh, well. And here's on a more kind of funny note, because I know there has been issues with YouTube and things like that with a lot of channels kind of struggling here and there with different problems and errors from their algorithms and things like that. When you obviously see people like Super GT and David Perel and Rory and the Key 25, would you ever like to? And obviously you've no doubt raced them on the sim games and on GT Sport and things. Would you ever like to do a real race with them? And maybe perhaps for a kind of charity event or something like that, get you all together, and if so, who do you think would win?
I'd love to do something like that, to be honest with you. So I like to do anything that's a bit of fun, a laugh, and all that good stuff. Who would win? So if it was karting, I think Super GT would win straight off the bat. That's job done. Although I would like to think I could give him a good run for his money. So when the GT World Finalists 2019 in Monaco, we all had go-karting event there, and I was. Well, I would think I was 7th, and top 6 made the final. So I was just outside the final that was shown on YouTube. So I could give him for the money, and I lost a bit of weight since then as well. So I lost 10 kilos. So I reckon I could give a good run for the money. But Super GT would probably beat me in karting. And then when it came to racing, I don't know. David will win probably by a mile. Obviously, being a professional racing driver.
But I suppose if you're on Sims, if you did a big event when it was just 5 of you or so, all the top chaps, kind of racing there on sim racing and doing different, I suppose, categories. Yeah, I think it would be a very, very close call, wouldn't it? It'd be quite an exciting event.
Yeah, it'd be good fun
to do. Do you think there's a reason why we've got so many Brits out there that have done so well with YouTube as sim racers and making this content and building the communities? Do you think there's something there that just seems to work?
I'm not actually sure, if I'm honest. Maybe just everybody likes our funky English accent. I don't know, really. I honestly don't know why. I'm sure maybe it's just the fact that YouTube dilutes it to us, maybe, and there's actually millions of others that we just don't see because, I honestly don't know the answer to that question. I mean, the UK does have motorsport heritage in essence, so it's sort of with us in a nutshell from the very beginning. It's it is a part of Britain, as in car culture, motorsport, and all that.
Yeah, no, that's the thing. I mean, that's how many people I know myself from just starting out and kind of when YouTube really kind of grew so much in the kind of from 2010 onwards. And I remember starting watching this racing videos, and it's kind of funny to think I'm watching somebody race playing a game, and it kind of seems a bit absurd at the start, but then you really get into it, and then that's how I found Super GT and so on, and then yourself and others, and so you start watching how you all race, and then you almost made little notes here. So I think this is what Gary does for this bend, or this is how anything that you were saying that was I knew was noteworthy. You would write down these kind of tips. So if you've got tips, you've got all these wonderful followers there watching you and subscribers, what would be, say, your top 3 tips that they could get from you for doing a faster lap and also how to improve your racecraft?
So one of the key things is to focus on one corner rather than an entire lap. It's very easy to get overfaced very quickly. So the first tip would be to focus on one corner. Forget about the rest of the lap. Just focus at one corner. It'll be good if that one corner is just one sector, because then you can really nail it down. So the actual GT Sport driving school is kind of good for this, because they do pick out a time, the time one corner or one little section of the circuit. So it's really good if you do that. Second tip would be just have fun, I suppose, because it's very easy to get negative very quickly with anything to do with racing. The minute you lose a race, you're like, I've wasted all my time. But at the end of the day, you should be doing racing for fun anyway. only one person will win. The rest will not win. So, if you're going out there to solely win, you're not going to have a fun time and therefore not want to improve or anything like that. And then the third one is, what can we do for the third one? I suppose be open to learning and listening. So, it's very easy to say I am the best. And you see it all the time on the Facebook comments all the time. I mean, Gran Turismo released a video of me doing the Zonda around Catalonia just straight after a patch had happened. And it made the car 10 times easier to drive and go quicker. And everyone was like, oh, I can beat this guy, no problem. And then they think they're the best in the world. And they're like, oh, I can beat all these guys, easy peasy, but I can't get in because of X, Y, and Z. But in reality, they're there for a reason. That people like TRL Lightning are insanely quick. So look at what they're doing, just learn what they're doing, just try and pick out little key factors. So one thing that I have not really talked about often, and people noticed this happened. So after one of the races, I talked to Lightning. I was like, do you think this car's unbalanced or balanced in terms of fuel usage into Lagos? So he took it out and I watched he did the entire race stint for me. He fuel saved and he raced in the Subaru that the previous day as well. So he had a direct comparison with the Subaru there. And he raced and he did the laps and he came in and I'd seen what he'd done. I'd seen what he was doing. I could acknowledge this. He came in and went, no, I think that car's pretty fine, actually. I think it's pretty balanced. So I was like, oh, it's fine. It's fine by me. Second opinion, job done. But what I'd done there is I'd also taken, I could see a few pointers that I could take away and apply to my own driving, which I did straight off the bat, basically. So I was open to learning, even though, I just asked Lightning to test the car basically for me to see if it was balanced or not.
Oh, that's brilliant. I mean, because it shows that you have to be ready to learn and increase your knowledge, isn't it? So that you can adapt. Yeah. The hardest thing I have is trying to watch the people, who do the fastest times on the videos, because I realize that, if I don't pause, I mean, it sounds ridiculous. If I don't pause the video and make the settings right, then I miss the gears. You got to have the camera angles and all the variable bits and all the pieces. The first time, of course, I forgot you could pause it. And of course, I was trying to do the settings and I missed half the lap by the time, I'd got to the actual bit that I was trying to, I have to go back to the start again and try and see it all. But it's also looking at that. And then it always seems to be a bit different when you're then trying to do it yourself and say, well, he did this corner in fourth gear. And then you're trying to figure it out. And of course, I end up going straight on into the wall, doing the same bit. So it's all a configuration. So a kind of learning experience. But there's no doubt you have to be ready to try and learn and do better. That's absolutely fantastic. Well, hopefully at some point we'll get to see you race in real life on a sim or in perhaps even a racing series with all the other chaps that we've been talking about, and of course girls as well. Do you follow people like Thea from the Amazons? I know she's talked about you before as well on her streams.
I've literally I struggle to keep up with everyone, to be honest with you, because I work and then I literally, so this is my day in a nutshell. I get up, I shower, I go to work, I finish it between, or generally speaking, between 6 and 8 p.m. I then literally sit on the computer or start the stream or whatever it might be. And then literally I finish that, I have half an hour and then I go to bed. That's generally what I'm doing at the moment. So I struggle to find or watch content. I do try and watch it when I can, but sometimes it's hard. But I do follow upcoming because one thing I want to see, and one thing Gran Turismo wants to see actually, are female drivers in the competitions. There's no reason why they can't. In real life, they say it's because of the physical difference between men and women, but in reality, in sim racing especially, there's nothing there. It's just purely getting out there and doing it. So I have followed that for quite a while. So I followed the first ever female GT Academy finalist, which was Phaser. She got in there. That was pretty amazing. And then there was, I can't remember her name, but I think there was somebody from Thailand who did it as well. So it's nice to see that more females are getting into the sport, basically.
Well, I think the Formula W series, they were always going to do a sim racing championship, but I don't think it ever took off because we were all kind of thinking that could be really quite good, great publicity. And there were some, it was a great championship anyway. It was a pity with everything that's been happening this year that they've not been able to carry it out. But no, I think they see there's plenty of opportunities. And as you say, with sim racing, it's a great equalizer because it's all, it's everyone has a shot, and it's pretty much level pegging, really, isn't it? There's not really a big advantage. Yes, you can have more expensive gear, but ultimately it's probably not going to get you an awful lot extra in terms of time unless you're incredibly gifted and to be able to use that. But well, that's absolutely fantastic. That well, look, thank you very, very much because that's just over an hour there of constant questions, which you've done extremely well, and especially with your fantastic community there, giving us plenty to talk about and plenty to have a good laugh with as well. But if it's your first time, or if you've been watching the Car Sim and Race Driver channel for a wee while and you've subscribed to our channel, please make sure that you subscribe to Tidgney's channel as well. He's a great laugh. You need to watch those Wreckfest videos and streams as well. They are fantastic. You'll hear Tidgney laugh away as he's crunching into someone in an old Volkswagen Caravelle van, or was it one of those kind of the 1970s?
Amber bus.
Amber van. They're fantastic. They're really, 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 really brilliant. Great to watch, and just the atmosphere, the emotions that you have when you race, and all that. It's just a great atmosphere to watch your streams as well. So it's been brilliant having you on the show here, and thank you to everyone in the chat, everyone who's been watching, who'll be listening to this on the podcast. It's great to have you with us, and if you'd like to subscribe to my channel here, then you'd be very, very welcome. As I say, we've got the interviews here with Tidgney, and also a big back catalogue of sim racers as well. But if you stay on the line at the moment, I'll finish the show with our famous catchphrase, which is drive fast and try not to crash. And next week, we've got Super GT on as well from 9 o'clock. So make sure you don't miss that. But to everyone here, thank you very much. And to Tidgney, you've been a fantastic guest. Speak to you all soon. Bye just now.